Is IRN the same as invoice number? Do I need to print QR code and IRN on invoice? Do I need to store e-invoice for a specific period of time? Can I place 2 QR codes on the invoice? Is carrying e-invoice print during transportation of goods mandatory? You may also be looking for answers to similar questions. Hi everyone, I'm Annapurna from Team ClearTax, and this is the right video for you to get answers to these questions and many more on key aspects of e-invoicing systems such as IRN and QR code generation, printing e-invoices, sending it to buyers and verifying one's receipt. Before we begin, if you haven't watched our exclusive e-invoicing playlist, I will leave the link to it in the description below. Do check it out to get a complete overview of e-invoicing system and important terms. Also, if you are new to this channel, we bring to you latest content every day from the world of finance and taxation. So do subscribe to ClearTax and press the bell icon to not miss out on the latest updates. So let's dive into this topic. What is the indication for the supplier that Invoice Registration Portal or IRP has registered the reported invoice? Upon successful registration of invoice on IRP, it will return a signed e-invoice JSON to the supplier with the invoice reference number or IRN and quick reference code or QR code. Is invoice number same as invoice reference number? No. Invoice number, for example ABC/1/2019-20 is assigned by supplier and is internal to business. Its format can differ from business to business and is also governed by relevant GST rules, whereas IRN is a unique reference number or a hash generated and returned by IRP on successful registration of e-invoice. What does a typical IRN look like? IRN is a unique 64-character hash based on GSTIN, invoice number, type of document, financial year as displayed on your screen. What are the validations carried out when invoice is reported to IRP, and can IRP reject an invoice? Yes, IRP can reject an invoice if it does not meet the schema or format as well as if it is found to be duplicate. IRP will check whether the invoice was already reported and existing in the GST system. This validation is based on combination of suppliers' GSTIN, invoice number, type of document and financial year. In case the same invoice has already been reported earlier, it will be rejected by the IRP. Certain other key validations will also be performed on the IRP. In case of failure, registration of invoice won't be successful. IRN won't be generated and invoice will be rejected along with the relevant error codes with a reason for rejection. On reporting invoice details to IRP, whether invoice will be returned as a signed JSON or PDF or both. IRP will return only the signed JSON. No PDF will be returned. On receipt of signed JSON, it is for the respective ERP or billing software to generate PDF if needed. Upon receipt of signed invoice JSON, an optional facility to generate PDF is also available on IRP. Can the taxpayer print an e-invoice? Yes. Once the IRP returns the signed JSON, it can be converted into PDF and printed if required. Businesses who don't have their own ERP or accounting software will be downloading and using the free offline utility, that is bulk generation tool, to upload invoice data on e-invoice portal and obtain signed invoice in JSON. In this scenario also, there is a facility on e-invoice portal to generate human-readable PDF copies of invoice for save, print or email. Should the taxpayer print the IRN on the invoice? No, it's optional. IRN is anyways embedded in the QR code to be printed on invoice. How will the QR code be received? The QR code is part of signed JSON returned by the IRP. It is string which the ERP or billing software can read and convert into QR code image for placing it on the invoice copy. Should the taxpayer print QR code on invoice? If so, what shall be the size and location on the invoice copy? Yes, the QR code also containing the IRN comes as a part of signed JSON from IRP. It must be extracted and printed on the invoice. This is one of the mandatory particulars of invoice under Rule 46 of CGST rules. However, printing of QR code on separate paper is not allowed. While the printed QR code shall be clear enough to be readable by a QR code reader, The size and its placing on invoice is up to the preference of the businesses. When the e-invoice is generated or printed by supplier to issue it to buyer, what are the mandatory contents of such invoice issued or printed? The particulars will be as per Rule 46 of the CGST rules, including QR code with embedded invoice reference number or IRN. While returning IRN, IRP is also adding its digital signature, acknowledgement number and date. There is no mandate to print these particulars on invoice copy. Note that the acknowledgement number and date given by IRP are only for reference. Being a 15-digit number, the acknowledgement number will also come handy for printing e-invoice or for generating e-way bills instead of entering the 64-character long IRN. If e-invoice is applicable, whether the seller is supposed to issue copies of invoice in triplicate or duplicate. Where e-invoicing is applicable, there is no need of issuing invoice copies in triplicate or duplicate. This is clearly specified in Rule 48 Sub-Rule 6. Will it be possible for invoices that are registered on IRP to be downloaded and saved on handheld devices? It depends on the ERP or billing software providing the service. The signed JSON can be stored on handheld devices also. It is advisable for supplier to properly store the signed e-invoice JSON as received from IRP. If a taxpayer doesn't use any ERP or GSP and uses an offline utility to generate IRN, then after generation of IRN, does he need to save the copy of signed JSON file received from IRP? IRP doesn't store invoices and hence facility to download e-invoice JSON from IRP is available only for limited number of days. So the taxpayers shall take care accordingly. GSTN has stated that facility to download signed invoice JSON from GSC system for suppliers and recipients will be made available in due course. What is the period of retention or storage or archival in case of e-invoicing? As per Rule 56 Sub-Rule 16 of the CGST rules, accounts maintained by registered persons together with all invoices, bills of supply, credit notes, debit notes, then delivery challans, etc. shall be preserved as per the period that is given under Section 36. The provision defines a minimum period as 72 months and the same applies to even e-invoicing. How to verify if an invoice is duly reported to IRP? One can verify the authenticity or correctness of e-invoice by uploading the signed JSON file or signed QR code as a string on the e-invoice portal. Go to search, click on Verify Signed Invoice and verify it. Alternatively, use Verify QR Code mobile app for the same. What data is embedded in QR code? The QR code will consist of certain key particulars of e-invoice such as GSTIN of supplier and recipient, invoice number as given by supplier, date of generation of invoice, invoice value with gross tax amount, then number of line items, then HSN code of main item being the line item having highest taxable value, unique IRN and its generation date. What is dynamic QR code and does it have any relevance for B2B e-invoicing? Mandatory reporting of dynamic QR code or quick response code for invoice payment is required only on B2C invoices. As per the current update, entities with aggregate turnover of more than Rs 500 crores in any preceding financial year starting from 2017-18 onwards have to comply with this requirement from 1st July 2021. It is also specified that dynamic QR code made available to customers through digital display with payment cross-reference shall still be deemed to be having complied with the QR code requirement. The dynamic QR code has no relevance or applicability to e-invoicing. Is it possible to have more than one QR code on an invoice? Yes. Apart from the QR code relating to IRN, supplier is free to place any other QR code which is required as per business needs or otherwise mandated by any other statutory requirements. In such cases, the QR codes need to be marked clearly so that they can be distinguished easily. On generation of IRN, will the IRP send or email the e-invoice to the receiver? No, IRP will not do this. Upon receiving signed JSON from IRP, it is for the supplier to share the e-invoice in agreed format to the receiver. How will the supplier send the e-invoice to the receiver? As per current update, a mechanism has been suggested to exchange the PDF of JSON received from IRP as the best authenticated version of an e-invoice. However, GSTN has stated that system-to-system exchange of e-invoices will be provided in the due course. On e-Invoice portal, after generation of IRN, there is a provision to generate PDF copy of invoice bearing digital signature of IRP. Is this the only valid copy for invoice issue, or can the taxpayer generate invoice PDF from JSON using his own ERP software? The generation of PDF copy of invoice on e-Invoice portal is only an optional facility, and the e-sign signage appearing on the invoice PDF is only for confirmation and not mandatory on the invoice copy. The taxpayers can generate and issue invoice copy using his own system, and the key requirement is that it shall contain all the mandatory particulars as prescribed by the notified e-Invoice schema. After obtaining signed JSON along with the IRN and QR code from e-Invoice portal, and while issuing invoice copy to the recipient, whether the supplier's signature or digital signature is required on invoice? Yes, the provisions of Rule 46 of the CGST Rules 2017 regarding contents of an invoice shall govern this aspect. How can taxpayers send invoices to their buyers who are small businesses to whom e-invoicing does not apply? There is no change in this process. Large taxpayers can convert the signed e-invoice JSON into PDF and share the copy by email or send printed copy by post or courier, etc. However, GSTN has stated that system-to-system exchange of e-invoices will be provided in due course. Where e-invoicing is applicable, is carrying e-invoice print during the transportation of goods mandatory? No. As per the Rule 138A Sub-Rule 2 of CGST Rules, where e-invoicing is applicable, QR code having an embedded IRN in it may be produced electronically for verification by proper officer instead of physical copy of such tax invoice. We have now come to the end of this video. Beat all e-invoicing challenges with ClearTax e-invoicing solution. It is fast, dependable and affordable. Visit einv.cleartax.in to explore the complete solution. If you found this video useful, then please like, share and feel free to post your queries and suggestions as comments below. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.